I have discovered many layers of myself through my growth. And in those layers, I've learned so many wonderful and meaningful things that I'd like to share with the world. The parts of myself that I find to be my most endearing and lovely haven't always made me feel that way. I know myself to be a giver of wisdom, a storyteller, an open book, someone who longs to connect with others and to help others connect with themselves. A person who enjoys living a life in a state of childlike wonderment, and a deeply loving human who wears my heart right there on my little sleeve for all who are willing to receive it. I've not always viewed these layers in such a positive way, and there have been years of my life spent under gloomy clouds, screaming awful things at myself. I've scolded myself for being a know-it-all, a pushy advice giver, a slimy social chameleon, an oversharer, a desperate attention seeker, too sensitive, not smart enough, too trusting, unworthy of love and happiness, not good enough. Insert self-mutilating thought here. I've repeated these things to myself over and over and over, and so I believed them. Of course, this reality of seeing myself in this negative way exists because of how I was taught to go through life. As a child, I looked to the adults around me for guidance. I learned it from their actions and the ways that they chose to interact with me, themselves, and each other. The only trouble with that is that their cycles of instability and insecurity were then instilled in me and created my own patterns. Ultimately, their inner truth and reality became my inner truth and reality because I didn't know any better. This is completely understandable and is necessary to address and process so we can grow. The problem, however, is that I did not address or process, but remained in this cycle unwittingly for years into my early adulthood, without question. I found myself to be in constant turmoil in my own skin, not realizing that I was the one creating it with my self-hatred. This caused desperate confusion within me, and I clung to others, trying my best to find answers from them. This codependence caused me to constantly blame everyone who ever hurt me or even loved me for my unchanging, deep-seated turmoil. I was not able to admit that I was doing it to myself, or have the will or bravery to go deeply inward, to face myself and change that reality on my own. This path I chose to follow made it impossible to know who I was on any level, and in turn I never knew who to share with others, so I became whatever would make me likable and make me feel the most loved and accepted that I could. I believed that I couldn't make any choices because they were too overwhelming, even my dinner that night, and that my entire reality was that of desperate situation after desperate situation, and this was how my life would always be. I measured my value with how much others liked me or loved me. I put my fate, worth, and power into the hands of the people around me, and into the fate of whatever my surroundings were in that moment, and then blamed the people and settings for failing to fix me. Or I felt frustrated that I kept exhaustingly changing my surroundings to try to fix my inner conflict without success. In doing this, I'd been absent-mindedly making the choice to live in a self-made hell. I refused to accept and nurture the passionate ways that I deeply longed to share myself with the world, and believed that it was because no one accepted me. How could they? I turned away from opportunities to accept those parts of myself as good enough, or to see them with a different perspective, because I was afraid to face them. I harshly judged and rejected myself. I pushed those core parts of myself away to try to become someone completely new and perfect, while ultimately causing myself to feel deeply confused about who I was exhausted from working against myself constantly, and angry that no one or no thing was changing that for me. Didn't I deserve it? Of course I did, but I was always looking in the wrong places and into the wrong eyes. Now, looking into my own reflection, I recognize that I have the grace within myself to be imperfect and sometimes crazy, and the ability to learn lessons from the things that I do that are not in alignment with who I want to be. I choose to try reflecting on the things and people who have failed me or hurt me and try to understand where my actions come from so that I can see them for what they are and change them or keep them. I choose to keep trying to be a version of myself that makes me proud. And when I do something shameful or feel a negative emotion, to try to benefit from what it has to teach me and then release it. I choose to apologize to myself first and to find peace and hope in the reality that I am the only one who has the power to change my mind. I have a choice to be the best version of myself in every moment, to believe that nothing is ever ruined, and to believe that as long as I am alive, every second is a new opportunity to make myself proud and give myself all of the love that I long for and deserve. In repeatedly making the choice to see myself from every angle, I found the acceptance of being imperfect and being happy anyway. It's the missing puzzle piece to a beautiful, meaningful, fulfilling, and growth-promoting life that I've always longed for and never knew I deserved until now. I found a path to peace within myself that I never thought reachable. And now I have the urge to stay curious and to open even more growth and possibility. Of course, I will never eliminate all of the thoughts and patterns that I have lived with and within for nearly my entire life. The purpose has never been to eliminate my inner critic. This part of myself also deserves a voice and can be very useful if I choose to hear it constructively and see its value in certain places in my life. It is just as important to recognize when you're falling into negative patterns and hurting others. Staying aware is the key to this. Just observing your thoughts and your patterns and not judging yourself, but realizing, oh, I'm doing this. And then deciding if you want to keep doing it or if you don't. And it's really that simple. Just stop judging yourself, at least harshly. But remember just to quiet down that jerk in your head. It's not worth paying attention to. Or stated in the wise words of Ice Cube, you gotta check yourself or you rickety wreck yourself. So here's to being a fallible, wonderful, crazy, strange, thoughtful, ridiculous, wondrous, confusing, hilarious, horrifying, gratifying, disappointing, sweet, disgusting, magical being, and for always seeing myself for what I am. Just a soul having a life experience, to simply enjoy being alive, because we're all just here for a short time, and it's time to just feel proud and feel joy.